Hi, I'm Claire Rose, and this is Influence Matters, the show where each week I share tips, tricks, tools, hacks, resources, and occasionally an interview to help savvy influencers just like you to strategically and intentionally establish, build, or cultivate your influence. Because we know that that's how we organically generate leads for our business, ministry, cause, or brand. And that is why we're here today and every week. So welcome to the show once again. Before we start, I do have to say my thank yous. So this show is brought to you by Rosedale Publishing. Thank you to the folks at Rosedale Publishing for making this possible. They specialize in books for the professional and the entrepreneur. So if that's you, that's who you need to call. So thank you to them. And then, of course, I have to say thank you to the fine folks at Tampa Bay Multimedia and WeBeam TV, where we're at today, for truly making this show possible. Thank you. Okay, no interview this week, so of course, I'm going to start with a question of the week from a viewer just like you. So this week's question is this: podcasting, blogging, social media, oh my. Clara, how do I decide what will make the best use of my time and efforts? Overwhelmed in Cleveland. Well, overwhelmed, my friend. You are a writer. I can tell that you're a writer. And that was so clever and cute that's why I picked yours this week, was because it was so cute. I thought, oh, this is a person after my own heart. Super fun. I do have some good advice for you today. I do understand that it can be really overwhelming when you're trying to build your influence. When you think about all of the places that you could be on social media, all the things you could be doing to get influence and generate leads, it can be very overwhelming. And it seems like every day a new one comes out, right? There's a new platform or a new tool or a new fun, cool thing. It can be really easy to get distracted and think, ooh, I have to do that and I have to do that. And get so busy with that new thing that you're never really effective at the ones you've already started. Or worse, they just fall completely by the wayside. So let's talk about some ways that you can deal with that kind of overwhelm. All right, let's start by talking about being strategic and intentional. Okay, where are your people? First things first. You're going to start with your research. Do you know where your people are? You need to find out where your people are hanging out online and offline. And then, because time is your most valuable resource, creating ways to better use your time is the key to avoid feeling overwhelmed. So, research first. Where are my people? Now, this is always something that I hear from brand new writers who don't really have a platform yet, don't really have an audience yet. They'll say, well, my stuff is for everyone, right? My people are everywhere. So I want to challenge you to take the time to narrow that down. Narrow down from, oh, everybody needs what I have, to who is that one person that I can most help, that I can most make a difference in their world, in their life. So you get it narrowed down so that you can say, okay, where are my people? Where are my peeps hanging out? Are your people on Pinterest? And are your people on Facebook? Are your people on LinkedIn? Where do your people hang out online? And during your research, not only are you going to discover where your people are, you're going to discover another thing that we're going to talk about today. who else is out there? What other influencers are in that same space? Now, it's not just about the exact same influencer that you are. It's about finding people who you share the same audience with. So here's a good example. My ideal audience are professionals and entrepreneurs who want to create influence, but more specifically, just by having a book. Right? So I can easily partner up with or collaborate with or do things with somebody who is talking to the same professionals and entrepreneurs, but doing something different with them. So Pete Vargas's organization is a good example. We were on his podcast, Inside the Green Room, and one of his guys was on my show because we talked to the same audience. Now, they're completely about speaking, right? Getting you on stages and speaking. So although I do talk a little bit about stages and getting your signature speech ready, things of that nature, I'm not really equipping you like they equip people to get on stages. So once you have your book in hand, getting on stages, other than just the signature speech portion, they really do a great job of helping people truly get in front of their ideal audience. Now, we serve the same people, right? Do you see that how we serve the same audience? So their people and my people are the same people, right? Mine is a little bit more niche down because I'm just looking for the entrepreneur and professional who wants to write a book for influence, a book that they can use as a tool specifically to gain influence that becomes leads for their business, ministry, cause, brand, whatever they're doing. But see how that's a pretty narrow piece right there? We are talking to the same people, but about different things. Okay, let's jump in. I'm going to split this into two pieces for you just to help with your understanding. So we're going to talk about creating and leveraging. First, you creating and leveraging your own assets. We'll talk about what that means. And then leveraging other influencers' assets. So the stuff that they're doing. Now, of course, others, I'm going to be talking specifically about those people who you share an audience with, right? Of course, that is the point, that you're speaking to the same audience. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Right? It doesn't make any sense. I'm probably not going to partner with or be on somebody's podcast or be on somebody's show or contribute to their blog, whatever, if they're in such a different niche that we're not even speaking the same language, we're not speaking to the same audience. That's just a waste of my time and their time. So that's not good for anyone. All right, let's start on the first one that you have the most control over, and that's your very own assets. That's where we're going to start today. So first, you're going to have to create your assets, of course. Before you can leverage anything, we have to have something to leverage. So let's talk about creating. You had to know that I was going to start by talking about writing and publishing your book. Right? That makes sense, right? That's my main focus, helping people to write and publish their book, getting that message out of your head and into a book and publish so you can use that tool for your influence. And then creating your signature speech. While I don't help you get on stages, it's another tool that we create to help you get on stages and take your book with you and sell your book from the stage, of course. And then picking your platforms is also super important. Because you can't be everywhere, you need to decide what makes the most sense for what you're trying to do. And then we're going to talk a little bit about repurposing your assets because we don't want to work any harder than we have to work, right? So create assets intentionally, which can be used for different purposes. So we'll talk just a little bit about that in a second. And then my savvy tip on this is just, like I say probably all the time, work smarter, not harder. Okay, so your book. Now, if you are a regular follower or you follow me on social media or you know me at all, you know that that's the number one thing that I talk about is getting your book out of your head so it can become a tool. And that's just a process. And I meet people every day who are like, oh, I've been working on my book for 10 years, or oh, I've written myself into a corner, or oh, I don't know what to say next, or, you know, all of my thoughts are just all jumbled up and I'm fearful it doesn't make sense to people. So I'm just going to say you need a process. All of this needs to be strategic and intentional. You need a process for getting your book done. When your book is done, then it's an asset. So all the time that you spend working on it is wonderful and great and necessary, of course, to get a good end product. But until you do, it's just work. When you get it done and it's published, now you have an asset. Now, what could you do with that asset? Well, a great thing to do with that asset is open doors to get onto other influencer stages. You could also write up some press releases for your book. You can get on radio stations. You can get on television. You can get a ton of exposure when you're a published author. So get that book done. That's step one for you, absolutely. And then, of course, creating your signature speech. If you intend to speak publicly, that's a simple thing that you can just have in the wings. And guess what? You've already written the book on the subject, right? So you already know where to pull information from for repurposing, right? Get out your book and look at your outline and say, okay, what will fit into a hour-long keynote? What would fit into a 15-minute opportunity to talk about something? And pull pieces from your manuscript for other purposes. Repurpose it. That's what I'm talking about when you create content that you can leverage, something you can absolutely repurpose for something else. And then pick your platforms where you want to be found. You don't need to be everywhere. You can't be everywhere, in fact. So where is your audience? Remember, we've done the research. We know where they live. If your audience isn't on Pinterest, don't waste your time on Pinterest. And if your audience isn't on Facebook, don't waste your time on Facebook. It seems like a no-brainer and like it shouldn't need to be said, but I see people every day chasing after that next cool new thing, thinking, ooh, this is the thing that's going to make me YouTube famous, or this is the thing that's going to get me that influence that's going to explode my business. But I'm just here to say you can't be everywhere, so don't try. So pick the ones where your audience already is, offline and online, mind you, and go spend your time and effort and energies there. Okay, and then finally, I've harped on it a bit already, but repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. I think people work way too hard on creating new things every week or new things every, whatever schedule you've determined you're going to speak to your audience on the platform you've determined or two you've determined you're going to be. Well, that can feel overwhelming if every day you think, oh my goodness, I need to create another blog post, or I need to, where am I going to get this information? Start with your book. Pull excerpts from your book. I promise you that every week you could pull one little tip from the book you've already written, the work you've already done. Put it on a graphic and get it out on social media and say, from my book. So we've done two things, right? We've connected with our audience once again, where they're residing, and we've talked about our book, kind of in a sideways way, but they're like, oh, this one's so good. I've got to get my hands on this book. Maybe it's a motivational Monday, or maybe it's a Word Wednesday, whatever you come up with to connect with your audience. Make sure you're repurposing something you've already done. Maybe it's from your signature speech. There's a great way to say, oh, this is from my signature speech, and give them a little quote. Really simple ways to repurpose the work that you've already done so that you're actually leveraging those assets that you created. Okay, so enough about our own assets. Let's talk about other people's assets. I'm talking about other influencers. So leverage other people's assets. These are influencers who have blogs or podcasts, Facebook groups, who are on LinkedIn, have their own show. However they're showing up in the world, they already have their own space and they're already influencing people. People are already paying attention to what they say and following them. And then participate in what those influencers have going on. Of course, you could, be a guest post for their for their blog, or you could be on an episode of their podcast. You could show up as a guest in their Facebook group, or write something for them that they can share on LinkedIn. You can participate with them in those ways, but I'm talking about the really powerful ways, which is participating in their events. So actually this week I participated in an event that's a 12-day event. She was on the show last week talking about it. We promoted it. We were repurposing what that content is going to be. So I was on the show, but so were 15 other people in the summit. 15 other people. So this was really powerful, right? Because I jumped in and gave of my time, because yes, it takes time and energy, right? I had to write it. I had to be on the interview. I helped with the promoting. All of those pieces took time from me. And in exchange for that time that I spent, because time is a resource, it's just like money, in exchange for that, I'm getting exposure not only to Sherelle's audience, who's doing the summit, but 15 of us, so 14 other people, their audiences as well, because they're also giving of their time in exchange for exposure to all of our audiences. So you can see how really powerful and how that's really leveraging somebody else's when you can participate in somebody else's assets, when you can participate in a summit where there's other people. I've seen a bit of this lately too, which is not a bad idea. Mostly not a bad idea. Participate in a book where a bunch of people are coming together around a topic for the same audience and putting it into a book. So perhaps you could get to write a chapter within a book, and that goes out to everybody's, right? Everybody who's in the book who has a chapter is now going to talk about that and share it with their audience. So it's a good leverage. I just want to warn you specifically about this one thing. You don't have any control over anything beyond your own chapter. So just be aware of that. So the writing or the content or the editing, the formatting, any of those things, you don't have any skin in the game there beyond just what you wrote. Right? So you won't know what the end product is going to look like. So I just caution you on that. I've seen a few that came out that I was grateful that I passed up on the opportunity to participate in because of the quality of the end product that came out. And I didn't really want my name attached to, since I help people write books, I didn't want my name attached to a book that was perhaps not going to be up to the standard where I would want it to be. And I was grateful for that particular one that I didn't participate. The formatting was all over the place. There was clearly no secondary editing beyond what the person who turned in the work for the chapter had done. It just wasn't a good representation from a professional standpoint. It wouldn't have been for me. I'd have been upset by that. And then, of course, the flip side of that is the person who puts the book together. Well, together, collectively, your book could easily become a bestseller, and then you could say, oh yeah, I'm an author of a best-selling book. It's not just you, it's, you're in that book, but that may not be a great thing if that best-selling book wasn't all that great. The person who benefited the absolute most from that was the person who put the book together, because they're the ones actually selling it, and they get to keep all of the retail profit. You've gotten exposure for your time and energy, which if you're okay with that and you're not so concerned that the end product is going to be up to a specific set of standards, then I say it is a great way to leverage other people's assets, leverage other people's audiences. So maybe not such a bad idea. All right, so let's talk more about the other kinds of events, the other kinds of things that you can participate in to help you leverage other people's assets. So we talked about the book. I think that's a strong one. The summit, which I did this last week with Sherelle, actually took several weeks to get to that point where it came out. Let's talk about somebody's podcast. I've been on a number of podcasts that gave me some fairly decent exposure. I have also been on a couple of podcasts where I didn't realize going in that we didn't have the same audience. You can really tell a difference in the amount of influence you get or the kind of influence you get when the audience isn't right. So if you're talking to the same people, you should see a good return on your time investment for being on the podcast. Now, podcasts can be very loosely, it's kind of a loose term. Some people just recording it over Zoom and putting it out there. Some people are going into a studio, putting it together professionally. And I've seen a few like from your car kinds of podcasters. So just be aware and do your research before saying, yeah, I'd love to be on your podcast. Number one, that you're speaking to the same audience. Number two, that they are professional to the same level that you would like to be presented professionally. And then just making sure that their business aligns with your business. Right? I want to say this tactfully and kindly, but not all influencers are created equally. There are some influencers who have no problem being smarmy. I think I may have made that word up, smarmy. Snarky, spammy. They don't care what it takes to make a sale. That doesn't really align very well with me and my business model or my sense of integrity. So for me, I'm really careful who I align myself with. Now, Clara, why is that so important? Well, it's important because people are going to make that connection in their brain. And it's the same thing when people are always asking for, who can you refer me to? They're asking for referrals. Now or asking for referrals. And I know a lot of people, but I don't refer people unless I know them. I know their work. I've had some interactions with them because once I refer them, my name is attached to that, right? So I've said, yes, this is a good bet right here. You can trust this person. There's some integrity here. So just think it in that way when you're thinking about how you can participate with influencers. Make sure there's an alignment there for you. And then leverage their audience. Find the right people, leverage their audience. And of course, I have a savvy tip for you on this one. Do not expect a free ride. Find ways to create a win-win for you and the influencer. Now, if they're like way ahead on the influence journey ahead of you, getting their attention at all is going to require you to offer them something that's going to be a win-win for them. I'd be willing to bet they get hundreds of people trying to tap into their audiences. So make sure you come up with a good win-win before you approach them with it. And then don't be afraid to ask. I tell all of my authors when we're working on their book, dream big. Don't be afraid to say, hey, would you write the foreword for my book? And dream really big. All they can do is say no or not respond to you at all. Either way, you could end up with an amazing foreword for your book because you asked. Okay, so that's pretty much the basics of leveraging for yourself and leveraging for someone else. But my biggest piece of advice for you today is to have a plan. Have a plan. It can be easy to get caught up in the weeds and jumping at every opportunity that comes your way. But as you participate in anything, it takes time and energy. That it's consuming your time and energy, which is a resource. So you need to be really intentional about where you spend your time and your efforts. So my big tip here is be intentional about the who. Don't waste your time talking to the wrong audience. If they're not talking to the same people that you're after, you are wasting your time. Even if they have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, you are wasting your time if you aren't talking to the right people. People who are going to want what it is that you have, people that you can serve. Okay, my overwhelmed friend in Cleveland, I hope that you found some useful tips today that you can put into practice. Just sit back and have a look at your strategy currently and get yourself a plan for moving forward. I'm kind of excited about this one. So really quickly before we go today, I want to share with you about something new and fun that I'm doing. I have it's not a new program. You've heard of it before, the Brainstorm and Blueprint. I have a new way to deliver the Brainstorm and Blueprint. It is coming in June, so be on the lookout for it. And it is live 6 weeks of group coaching to get your book started. So this is the same brainstorm and blueprint process that you've heard me talk about forever. I talk about it all the time. It's that get it out of your head, get it onto paper process where you can actually make it into a book. So the same process that I've been doing for several years, one-on-one with my clients, and I've made it into a group format. There's some really great benefits that comes with having other people to bounce ideas off of, kind of a community of people helping you with it, but also leveraging it so it's not as costly for you to get started on your book. When you're done, you're going to have a start to finish plan for getting your book written, edited, and published. And you're also going to know exactly what goes into every single chapter of your book. Then when you start writing, you're going to know where you are. So no more writing yourself into a corner, no more wondering what to talk about next, no more jumbled up stuff in your brain. Remember, I was talking about that earlier. That's one of the things that people say. You know, I've been writing this for 10 years, but it's kind of just all over the place. It's not very cohesive. I just don't know that I'm getting my message across. And all of that starts at the foundational level of getting your brainstorm and your blueprint solid and done well. Then you really just have to write. It's just about writing. And then when you sit down to write, you can say, okay, chapter 1. What are we writing about in chapter 1? Once you get through all of your book, then you got to find yourself a good editor. And I happen to know a few if you're interested. And find yourself a publisher or find yourself an agent if you're wanting to go traditional publishing or a hybrid publisher like Rosedale Publishing if you'd like to partner up with someone and publish. So I'm super excited. Be on the lookout. You can hop over to my page on Facebook and watch for it there, or stop by clararose.com and watch for the announcement to pop up there. So both of those places I'll be excited to share. And then of course, every week on this show, I'm always talking about what's coming next. And I will be sure to give you a special deal if you say, I saw it and heard about it on the Influence Matters show. Okay, we are out of time for this week, but thank you once again for spending your time with me. I hope that together we are writing, speaking, and leading and making a difference in the world around us.